Hey everybody, welcome back to Backlog Banter. I'm your boy, Abram Buhner, the good old arbiter of taste. I'm joined by Tucker Hazel as usually, and we are here to talk about our favorite games of 2020 because 2020
It's
has
true.
been a year with 365 days in its calendar, and we'll leave it there. However, in light of everything that happened, 2020 I think was actually a really excellent year for video games, not only new
100%.
releases, but older games that Tucker and I have played for the first time this year. So, we're
Yeah.
taking on our top games of 2020 donkey style, meaning that we're going to give you our favorite games that we've played this year, but they're not necessarily going to have released this year. So I've got some
hmm
fucking old stuff, some new stuff, and we're just going to ping pong back and forth talking with you about our favorite games of 2020. Tucker, how you feeling?
I'm very excited for this.
Me
I
too.
mean, I played a lot of strange games that I can fucking guarantee no one else is going to talk about in their top 20 of 2020 lists. So, and I think that gives our list a little charm, a little bit of personality. Um, would you like me to go first on my
I
number
would love you
20?
to go first.
Now, here's the thing. This game was just bumped up to my 20th slot
Okay.
because I realized I didn't want to have two of the very similar games on it. Picross S5 was above this, but then I have a higher Picross game, so I wanted to keep it a little more balanced
Sure.
and spread out. So current number 20, I have Super Mario 64, which I
Oh,
played through the Super Mario 3D All Stars collection. We actually did not do a full review of this. We fully
no.
reviewed Sunshine Galaxy, but 64 was the one I started with. I went in chronological order for the three of those, and I think that game deserves so much of the acclaim that it got. It is insane how well it holds up. That really some of the only things I have problems with are the camera being a little bit clunky. Some of the later level design I don't think is particularly as good, and unfortunately, the music is a little bit limited, meaning some stages don't get their
Yeah.
own feel to it. But on the whole, it's a game with incredible openness, lots of fun level design, great music. Like it's absolutely fantastic, and I'm glad I finally got around to beating it.
It's a really solid game. I actually never finished Mario 64, so that's going to be one
Damn.
I get to before too long, especially now that I have 3D All-Stars. But I'm
Mhm.
really glad that you got into the 3D Mario games, and I hope we're going to hear about some more 3D Mario on your list a little bit later on.
Yep.
My number 20 is a game that I have fucking fought tooth and nail to make sure stays on this list, even in the most cursory position, and that is the Super Nintendo classic Kirby's Dream Course. Now, Kirby's Dream Course is a very strange game. It's basically Kirby puzzle golf, kind of, and I think it's just an
Yeah.
absolutely charming and strange little Kirby spinoff. It's my second favorite Kirby spinoff behind Kirby's Pinball Land, and this game is also on
Okay.
Super Nintendo Online. So I really implore everyone to check it out. I
Mm.
think if you just play a couple rounds, you'll see why this game is really special and really really weird, especially if you read about the plot of the game. But Tucker, I'm going to throw it back to you
Wild.
for number 19.
Yeah, I don't know anything about the plot of honestly almost any Kirby game, especially not the ones where you're a fucking golf ball.
Yes.
Um, Number 19 for me. I don't think I've ever talked to you about this game because I don't think you have anything to say about it, and that is Gone Home.
Oh, okay.
Now, I am a walking simulator fan. I'm an indie game storytelling fan. I loved Firewatch. I loved Edith Finch, and Gone Home was kind of the predecessor to each of those. So I picked it up for like fucking $4 on Steam. I don't know what it was, and that game is absolutely fantastic. I mean, it's so narratively rich. The voice acting for the main character is amazing. There's so much detail to go around and check out. And as you explore the house, you pieces together a really compelling narrative. And it's a game that I just sat down at like midnight one night and started and played to like 4 a.m. or whatever in
Yeah.
one sitting. And I love games that really engross me like that. And I feel like I have to push to the end because it's just so fascinating. And I really recommend that game. I'm actually pretty sure it's got re-released on Switch at some point,
I
but
believe
I
it
got it on
was.
Steam because it's super cheap. But it's very accessible. It's not a gameplay style that is for everyone, but I think that the narrative and visual style and how much it was innovative for future games like Firewatch and Edith Finch, I think it's definitely a must play.
I will get around to Gone Home at some point. It's one of those ones I've heard great acclaim for, but just hasn't quite crossed my paths yet. Hasn't been in my crosshairs. Unlike a lot of people in my number 19 game, Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War.
That was a fucking bad transition. That was terrible. I was stupid.
You know what's not stupid?
Cold War.
the campaign for Cold War. Now, I barely understand Call of Duty multiplayer. I played about an hour of Cold War's multiplayer. I'm like, we're just fucking playing tag, and this is not fun at all. But the campaign is one of the most high fidelity and immersive experiences I've had on PS5, specifically because of its use of 3D audio and especially adaptive triggers and haptic feedback. I think what Raven Studios did to really immerse the player in the world of Cold War is absolutely incredible, and they paired that with some really excellent action set pieces and a narrative that I think takes the player a little bit more seriously than the older Call of Duty games, which I find pretty unappealing with their kind of bro-y, gung-ho, pretty
Sure.
archetypical elements. I know people really like the old Black Ops games, but those passed me by. So this new one from Raven Softwares and Treyarch, I think, was really a showcase for early next-gen gameplay, and I think a pretty special single-player campaign.
Yeah. Okay. Let's hop over to something that you might actually think is a little bit low, but
Okay.
this is not a slight against the game at all. In our review, I mentioned how much I enjoyed it, and that is Spider-Man Miles Morales.
Okay.
I think that game is absolutely fantastic. I think it just isn't as special an experience to me as I got the platinum for the original, and I personally prefer the original. But the things that it adds give me so much hope for the future of this series.
Sure.
Miles upgrades to his moveset with the Venom Blast and invisibility and new traversal mechanics, and of course I think a little more tightly written and compelling narrative, and the visual upgrades. It's a fantastic semi-sequel, and I think that it certainly deserves to be held on its own as its own game, and not like people feeling, oh, it's it's kind of a spin-off, it's kind of a thing. No, it's its own full game, and I've really much enjoyed it.
We'll get to that one soon enough. In the meantime, I'll share my number 18, and that is Untitled Goose Game.
Oh, what the heck, you played that this year for the first
Yeah,
time,
yeah, I
or just
played
in
it this
general?
year very early for the first time, and I
Hey,
beat it very quickly. It's not a particularly long game, but it passed me
no.
by because when it came out, Link's Awakening just came out. I had just started
Mm.
my fall semester of my freshman year of college, so I was a little bit preoccupied. But I got a lull when I was on break earlier this year, and I played Untitled Goose Game, and this is just a incredibly charming and inventive little puzzle experience.
Oh yeah.
I think it's refreshing to have such simple mechanics be used in such interesting ways with such an
Mhm.
inviting art style and just overall premise. I think this game is really special, and I'm excited to see what House does next in the context of a little bit of
100%.
a more full experience.
Yeah, I mean, I actually think the strongest through that game is its accessibility.
Yeah.
It's so simple to just slap someone in and be like, "You're a goose. You can
Yes.
screw things with your beak, flap your wings, and honk." That's everything. And I dropped my mom into it, and she was laughing her ass off the
Yeah.
entire time. She thought it was the funniest shit she'd ever seen, and it was really fun to see someone who has, I don't know, maybe played Centipede, like that's her extent of gaming and
Sure.
Rock Band or Wii Sports. Really enjoy a game like that. But on a different note, Mario Super Picross, the Japanese exclusive Super Nintendo
All right.
Picross game, it is developed by the people who are making the Picross S games on Switch today. So they've been doing this for a meaty fucking time.
Can I interject something really quickly?
Yeah.
Did you know that that is the same developer that did The World Ends With You?
No, I didn't.
Which is fucking
With
wild, but keep
Jupiter?
going. Yeah, Jupiter made World Ends
Huh.
With You.
Okay. Well,
That's just a
I
weird
haven't
fact I
played that
picked
game,
up the
so
other
I
day.
didn't know that. But Mario Super Picross is actually really interesting in a lot of ways. It shouldn't be a Mario game. Like they just slapped that skin on it or the label on it for clout, I guess. Because not even the puzzles are like Mario things, which is a little bit disappointing. But the puzzles are fine. It's good Picross. I like this sort of archaeology art style, which again
Mhm.
has nothing to fucking do with Mario. But the strongest suit of this game and why I think it's a special Picross game is there are actually two campaigns. There's a Mario campaign, which is very meaty, and a Wario campaign, which is also very meaty. And the Wario levels are troll levels. The first Wario level is 1 pixel. You just do one dot. That's the entire level. Like, and they just keep fucking with you as it goes on. And I think that's such a charming and creative way to sort of give a spin to the Picross formula, which I enjoy so much. And it's free on Super Nintendo Online. And I'm very glad I played it.
Yeah, that might actually be. I know it shouldn't be the first Picross game I played, but that sounds really charming. So that may be
It's
one of the
also in
first.
Japanese.
Yes, but I
And
can
the
read
first like
Japanese.
6 levels or whatever are just making katakana. So it's hard to understand, but
I can't actually read Japanese. I wish I could.
no, you can't.
I will play that when that Sonic Picross game comes out, or the Sega one. I'll try
Yeah,
that for
yeah,
sure.
yeah, yeah.
In the meantime, let's talk about my number 17, which is SteamWorld Dig 2.
Oh, hell yeah.
This is an absolutely lovely game that marries some pretty interesting and non-linear Metroidvania gameplay that I think gives the player a lot of agency with a really awesome art style and just general vibe that I really liked. This game passed me by for a long time, but I actually got a free code for the game when Image and Form was doing their big "Everyone Stuck at Home" campaign. Fill out this form for a chance to get whatever game you want, and
Huh.
it was really generous of the developers. I think they gave it like 2,000 codes to the first 2,000 people
Wow.
who signed up, and I got one for SteamWorld Dig 2, and I'm really glad that I had the chance to play it because this is just such a magnificent game. I really love it, and I implore people to check it out because the Metroidvania genre, I think, falls into a lot of the same tropes, but this game breaks all of them and turns them on their head and adds some crafting elements and survival elements and just a lot of player agency that made it really, really compelling for me.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite games of all time. So I'm glad to hear you enjoyed it so much. But you know what else I just think is magical and fun and stupidly charming? Astro's Playroom, which I currently and recently bumped it to my favorite PlayStation 5 game
Okay.
above Miles Morales. Astro's Playroom, we did a review, so card in the corner to that. Um, it's just so charming. It's just so fun. I mean, like honestly, the more I think about it, the more fun I have with that game.
Yeah.
The more memorable the levels were, the more I think back fondly on all the Easter eggs and love for PlayStation history. It's really a fantastic game, and I can't wait to see what Astro does next. Because while I didn't play the Playroom or Playroom VR or what was his
Astrobot
rescue
Rescue
mission?
Mission.
Yeah, rescue mission. Playroom Asher's Playroom really got me invested
Yes.
in the character and the style and seeing what that dev team team Asobi can do. So I can't wait to see what they do next.
We'll talk about that one also in a little bit. In the meantime, hey Laurel, can you turn that down just a little bit? Thank you.
I can't hear whatever is at all.
Okay, but I could
Can
hear
you
it.
can you hear my dad at all?
No.
Okay.
Thank you, Laurel. And now we're going to go from that to number 16, a game I really think you should play, but you haven't yet. And I think it's one of 2020's hidden gems. That is Streets of Rage 4.
Ah, yes.
This is a spectacular beat 'em up with a beautiful art style, and it's one that I jumped into without a lot of context. I hadn't played Streets of Rage prior, but I'm really
Yeah.
glad that I did, and I'm going to go back and play some of the originals. But I think from a mechanical perspective, the risk versus reward they give you of your special meter versus your health meters, you'll see when you play the game, combined with its sense of style and its actual art style, it coalesced an experience that is really special. And it was one of my early games of the year. And the fact that it's number 16 now just speaks to how much great stuff I played.
Sure.
But this is not one to miss.
Actually, I do have one quick question on that. What was your experience with the beat 'em up genre before that? Because I have little to no experience with the beat 'em up genre. I played the new Battletoads game this year and thought it was really fucking dumb.
Yeah.
But I don't know if that's just me not being experienced in the genre or just not being fun to me.
I was very new to it too. I'd played some Turtles in Time. I'd played some
Mm.
other things very briefly, but this is really fresh to me, and it was a lot of fun as a result.
You know what else was fresh and fun to me? Super Mario Sunshine. I think that game is special and fantastic. And while it has some frustrating elements and a little bit of constricted design philosophy,
Mhm.
I think that the good that this game does is just on another fucking level.
Yes.
I just put my heel down and played this game as much as I could over the course of like 4 days. And heresy, I know, but I like the blue coins because of how it what makes me want to explore the levels a little bit more and rewards me for said exploration. And I just think there's so much in this game that it does right. I think that it's unfortunate that it gets the crap that it does because of those few poor design decisions. But on the whole, this is an absolutely fantastic game and one of my favorite 3D Marios.
I should have just made a little bit of a sign I could hold up because we'll talk about that one also a little bit later. In the meantime, I want to talk about a game that's not as fresh and one that I finally finished this year and dumped like 50 hours into after not really feeling it last fall, and that is Pokemon Sword.
Oh, okay.
Pokemon Sword, I finally finished very early this year in January, and then I've put a lot of time into its post game, put a lot of time into its DLCs, And I think that Pokemon Sword is a game that is both over and underrated by literally everybody. It's
The
a
great
very,
Galar debate is coming at some
it's
point.
coming. It's
It's
definitely
fucking
coming.
better. Yeah.
It's a contradictory experience, but I think at its core is a game that is trying to evolve the Pokemon formula, and it's one that just subjectively came at the right time when I was having these lulls in the year when I needed something to fall into and really become lost in. Pokemon is a very familiar and comfortable franchise for me. So the fact that I was able to engage with the game a little bit deeper this year was really awesome, and the fact that Game Freak put out, I think, a really excellent piece of content in the Crown Tundra
Sure.
cemented this as more than just this middling Pokemon experience, but something not only very exciting, but something that has me really stoked to see what happens in Gen 9.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with a lot of what you said. Unfortunately, the game didn't as it's gone on, it hasn't connected with me more. It is my number 51 game of the year. So
Ooh,
it's
okay.
it's or game I played this year. So it's down there. But you know what isn't? What's up here actually? Professor Layton and the Miracle Mask. Baby,
Okay.
let's fucking go. This game is so special. It takes the 2D Layton formula that was in the first three games. I think there are three games before this one. And seamlessly transitions it to 3D character models that look just as fantastic as the 2D drawn ones, continues that incredible high production value animated cutscenes, a really engaging story, super memorable characters, and just the best fucking puzzles in the business. I mean, it's insane. And Luke and Layton are such, and Emmy are such charming characters. The Layton series is one that I think needs a boost again.
Yeah.
They released Catriel Layton, the fucking Millionaire's Conspiracy, whatever, on phone, 3DS, and Switch a couple years ago. But I think this series needs a refresh in a home console, fully next generation Layton game, because I think it does have a lot of potential, and it's one that I unfortunately not many people I know play.
When we get to our 2021 gaming resolutions video, I'll have some more to say about Layton. In the meantime, I'd like to talk about my number 14, which is a game you mentioned previously, and that is Spider-Man Miles Morales.
Oh yeah.
Um, I, unlike you, am not a very big fan of the 2018 Spider-Man game. For my taste, it felt a little bit paint by numbers open world, and while I think some of that hangs around in Miles Morales, I think that the narrative is a lot stronger. I think that the combat is a lot more engaging and doesn't feel like it's just ripping off Arkham. I think
Sure.
that Insomniac really evolved a pretty solid foundation in 2018. It's something that I was able to personally connect to. So I'm, like you said, very excited for the future. And like we also said, we have a review, so I'm not going to spend too much time talking about this, but it was a lot of fun and a great way to bring in my PS5.
Yeah. It was a great way to. Nah, that doesn't work. But you know what was a good game? A very good game?
Yes.
Sayonara Wild Hearts. Now that's a game that we have a review of. It was one of our
Yes.
first indie reviews, I think. And I just one day randomly plopped down, played it, got it for cheap on the Nintendo Switch eShop, and absolutely fucking loved it. That
Yes.
game is both style and substance, and I think that is absolutely fantastic. It's got probably one of the greatest game soundtracks of all time, not from a large scale scope, but just consistent quality, how they play into the style and the narrative and all of that. And just the gameplay variety is fucking wild. I still think about that first Claire de Lune level. Like even though it's really simple, it just everything about that and just how it gets your adrenaline pumping with the style and action and stuff. It's absolutely fucking fantastic.
That is a stunning game. It's actually my number 22, so it just barely missed the
Sure.
bottom of the list, but it really is special. And Annapurna just puts out such fucking awesome games.
Oh
And
yeah.
I can't wait for Stray in 2021. Um, but now let's kick it back a little bit to my number 13, which is Halo Combat Evolved.
Mm.
Now, it's a little bit annoying
My
to
number
me.
54 of the year.
It's a little bit annoying to me that this game is where it is because it should have Halo 2 above it, but my fucking Xbox is still
Oh yeah.
decommissioned. But that doesn't change the fact that I played and loved Combat Evolved this year. I think it is such a special first person shooter that offers a completely different flair than the cover based, more archetypical first person shooters we've been getting as of the most recent console generations. This game, I think, is visually rich, and not only visually rich, but visually understandable. So the firefights stay fun. You're able to move around some more. I think the movement is really great. I think it's incredibly iconic. And of course, that soundtrack just bangs.
Yeah.
So I really loved my time with Combat Evolved. And as soon as good old Ted Xbox is fixed, I'm going to finish Halo 2 Anniversary, which would have been on this list had I finished it, and play through the rest of the series as well.
Yeah. You know what doesn't have a banger of a soundtrack? In fact, this game has a fucking god awful soundtrack. Yoshi's Crafted World. The music of that game fucking blows, but everything else in that game I think is charming, incredibly rich, and just I'm surprised this game didn't get talked about more because there's so much in this game in terms of unique level design. I love the way that this game is laid out. It's not 8 worlds with 8 levels apiece. It's like fucking 15 small worlds with 3 levels apiece, and each of those levels have their own identity and go do whatever the hell they want within that theme. It gives you so much variety. There's so much to collect. The visual style is incredibly unique, super high resolution, which is incredible. And the gameplay itself, I think, within the terms of the level mechanics and just throwing exit stuff in both forward and to the background, all that is incredibly solid. And it's built on this foundation of an impeccable level design that just keeps you wanting to like, oh, well, one more level. I'll see what's next. Or I'll go back and get a few collectibles on this one world because I want to see what it looks like from the other side. There's so much to keep pushing you on. And it did. I played that game for probably about 20 hours within like a week and a half. It's absolutely fucking fantastic.
People say that Crafted World is the better game, and pardon my language, that's absolute poppycock because the level of creativity, I think, here.
Woolly World?
Yes.
You
What did
said
I say?
Crafted World. Yeah.
Well,
you messed up your own point, but I understood what you said.
The point is that so many Yoshi games, Woolly World in particular, was just trying to emulate the original Yoshi's Island on SNES. Crafted World, to an extent, takes those gameplay concepts, but I think it recontextualizes them in finally a fresh Yoshi platformer. And it's incredibly inventive and fun from start to finish. And I think it's a sleeper hit on Switch that more people should talk about. I hope that it's one of those that when Nintendo finally does like a Switch Selects line, it's down for like $20 and people pick it up and finally see it, because I really think that it's an incredibly special game.
Yeah.
Another special game that I played on Switch, which was a suboptimal way to experience it, but still phenomenal, is The Outer Worlds. This is an incredible Western RPG that has a level of choice that I never expected. I have not played Fallout, so keep that in mind. But the ways I was able to have a mission presented to me in The Outer Worlds and solve it in a bajillion ways, from using actual meaningful dialogue options to weasel my way out of a conversation, get what I want, to literally going up to the NPC quest giver and shooting him with a laser and turning him into a pile of sand in front of me and just walking past him. The amount of choice here was just incredible. And you pair that with, I think, an aesthetic and world that's really charming and interesting. And I just absolutely love this game, and I'm excited to see Obsidian's other projects with Microsoft, because I really hope that they take what they did here and expand it.
Like Grounded. No.
But this is a really excellent game, but it's actually pretty small in scale. You can beat it in about 15 hours. So I'm excited to see a larger project from them and what that would look like.
Sure. You know what that game kind of based off of? Game you might not have heard of. The Elder Scrolls V, Skyrim. Now, Skyrim gets a lot of shit. People like crapping on that game. And I honestly don't think it's warranted in almost any capacity. It is one of the most rich open world RPGs ever made. The fact that it's, visually kind of clunky and gray, and you can glitch the fuck out of it, I don't think takes away from the fact that this game has so much gameplay diversity in how you tackle your character, so many interesting side quests, a huge open world filled with stuff to do. I mean, just walking around, going a little bit off the path and finding a cave that has a couple people in it that turns into a dungeon that goes down to like this abandoned dwarven fortress that unlocks all sorts of different side quests and new items. And there are items tied to other quests, and stories go between towns, and a rich history is built. This game is so fantastic in its world building and its gameplay diversity, as I said, and just the fact that you can do whatever the fuck you want. You can buy a house, you can build a family, you can do whatever you want. And I really think it's a special game that unfortunately has become a meme in a way that I don't think is warranted. I mean, Skyrim is really incredible, and I just wish people would give it a little bit more of a critical backwards glance rather than just like, oh hey, it's getting released over and over again. Oh hey, Skyrim memes are everywhere. No, it's more than that.
I've never played it in a meaningful way. I played it with my cousin because he's a big Skyrim fan, but I might get around to it. I really don't know.
Quick note is,
pass me by.
I played this on my Switch. I got it on my Switch earlier this year, and I played like 45 hours of it. I mean, it runs fantastic on Switch, and it's one of those games that I think hopping in and exploring a little bit and completing a few side quests, just whenever you want to on your Switch is fantastic.
Do you want to hear about a game that does not run on Switch? Well, I'm going to tell you anyway. That's number 11. That game company is Flower.
Oh, well, probably would run on Switch.
It probably would, but it won't.
Yeah.
And it's a shame because Flower should be played by everybody. This is a game that you have been evangelizing to me for a long time, and I finally played at like literally 2 a.m. when I couldn't sleep one night. It is a stunning game. Stunning, I really think, is a beautiful word for it because from its aesthetic to its thematic elements to the simplicity of its gameplay, it's a confident and excellently executed little experience that I think stands next to Journey as a different but really worthwhile game. I do prefer Journey, but I think that Flower in its own way is incredibly, incredibly special.
Yeah. You know what else is special? Legend of Zelda: Link Between Worlds. Review card in the corner.
Yes.
This is the one that sort of got me really into Zelda. I begrudgingly, quote unquote, played Link to the Past because I'm like, okay, it's famous, it started the Zelda formula, whatever. But I ended up really liking that game. However, Link Between Worlds is just, in my eyes, infinitely better. It's the same game, let's be fucking real, but with more compelling characters, better quality of life, better side content, mediocre visual style, but I think it's still fine, and I like it, and better dungeon mechanics. I just think that Link Between Worlds is incredibly special and one of the best 2D Zeldas, even though I hadn't played a lot of them. This is a gold standard.
I really love that game too. I haven't played it in a while. I'm really excited to hear your thoughts on Link's Awakening when you get around to that one.
Yep.
But that is a very, very special game. Well, both of them are special, but especially Link Between Worlds. Now, my number 10, another game you talked about earlier, Super Mario Sunshine.
Okay.
I had played Super Mario Sunshine to varying capacities earlier in my life, actually on GameCube hardware, but never very extensively. So this is not only my first time finishing the game, but it was my first time seeing the majority of what it has to offer.
Sure, yeah.
And I think that it's just a really charming experience that is underrated, but also fairly unpolished. So I understand where a lot of the discourse around the game comes from, but I think that it, on the back of its creativity, on the back of its aesthetic cohesion, on the back of just the way that it took 64 and had the confidence to do something new with those mechanics and that style, just makes it incredibly special. And I'm really glad that it's on Switch now, because I think that this is an excellent way, more so than I think any of the other games in 3D All-Stars. This is an excellent, excellent way to play this game. So if you haven't played Sunshine yet, I really think this is the prime way to do it. And I'm really glad that I finally did and completed it.
Yeah, I mean, especially with the patches Nintendo put out that fixed the issues people were complaining about. You don't have to play with inverted or uninverted controls. I can't remember which one it was.
But they're uninverted they're inverted in Sunshine on GameCube. They uninverted them for the Switch release, which was very smart, but they should have had the option.
Yes, which they added back in. Yes, and also GameCube controller support, which they added. So yeah, I mean, it's the definitive way to play Sunshine now because it looks fantastic. I mean, that game holds up incredibly well. Probably some of the best water visual. I mean, just talking about Skyrim, that game is fucking gross water. But Super Mario Sunshine, fantastic water visuals. No water visuals in this game, but Picross S4 is a game that really, really caught me and grabbed me, and I played so much of it into the fucking wee hours of the morning. And I've talked about this through a lot of our content, but just to reiterate, the Picross formula is incredibly simple and hasn't changed. And the other Picross S games on Switch and you know in general are essentially the same, but this is the one that got me into it, and it's the reason it connected to me personally. Picross is in some ways like reading, like playing music. You get into the formula, you start understanding the quirks and and what you're supposed to do, and it just feels natural. And it's a really engrossing experience when you get into it. I mean, it seems just like clicking blocks on the outside, but there's so much more depth to it than it might initially seem, that I think everyone should give a Picross game a try. There's a fucking load of them on Switch, including Murdered by Numbers, which has a story to it, and a couple other ones which mess with the Picross formula. Of course, as I said, Mario Super Picross, free on Super Nintendo Online, made by the same developers as the Picross S series. But there are 5 Picross S games, which are all go on sale a lot, and the older ones are very cheap on Switch. So it's a super accessible game franchise that I think deserves a larger place in the game sphere, even though it's, a relatively simple experience.
Sure. And I will try Picross. I promise you. I will not die unless some tragic accident happens to me without playing a Picross game. I'm going to keep it a little bit of a similar sphere, if you will. It's a little bit of a different experience, but I want to talk about Clubhouse Games, 51 Worldwide Classics.
Simplicity, I guess.
Yeah, and it's a very accessible experience, and I think that this is really the sleeper hit of Nintendo's 2020, at least in my opinion.
Sure.
I think that it's an especially charming game that has a lot of polish and a really great presentation that wraps all of these excellent experiences that are great in real life into a digital package that has surprisingly robust online, and that's what really attracted me to the game, because I've told this story a fucking bajillion times, but I'm up here in Maine and my girlfriend is quarantined in California, and we played a lot of Clubhouse games online together. And it was a testament to how that game prioritizes the personal relationship you have to the other player opposed to the objective of the game itself. Sometimes you play a game like Mario Kart and it's more about, oh, I'm going to beat you in the race, haha, right? Things of that nature. But Clubhouse games makes it more about, okay, we're sitting down together to play chess or to play Mancala or to play checkers or blackjack or whatever. And I think that that's a very special experience and not one that local multiplayer often offers. So I was really, really happy that I ended up picking this one up, even though I skipped it initially at launch.
Sure. Legend of Zelda Minish Cap.
Oh, wow.
That's my number 8. Now, this comes with a fucking big caveat. Is that a C? Is that a C? I don't know. One of the two. I don't know if it's mirrored or whatever. But I have not beaten this game. Okay. I am in the final dungeon. And I am stuck on this one part where you have to clone yourself and deflect back things with like stupidly precise timing. I have no idea why this is so much more reflex focused than literally the entire rest of the game.
Okay.
But outside of that and the fact that I haven't finished it, so I don't know what the final dungeon is entirely like or what the end of the story goes through. But this is one of my favorite games visually. I think it has some of the best pixel art of all fucking time. It is so unique for the Zelda formula. It's a pocket-sized open world that feels so dense with things to do. It has these, a ton of weird mechanics that no other Zelda game does, shrinking down, which does actually add a lot of gameplay depth and visual charm, because you get, giant acorns or blades of grass, or you're climbing up books or whatever. Eslo is a really fun character to banter with, I think more so than, Fi or Navi or any of the other, sort of tag along characters you've had in Zelda. And just the entirety of the new items that it adds with the gust jar and the little leaf that you can glide on. All of these things add up to a really engaging gameplay experience and a really unique Zelda experience. And I think it's craving for a re-release. I mean, the way that Link's Awakening was, this game really holds up, but I think if it was added on Switch for GBA Online, or if it was given some sort of larger updated release, I think this game deserves a lot more attention, because it's really one of the most finely crafted and unique Zelda experiences there are.
Yeah, I still need to play it. I have it on Wii U Virtual Console, so that's probably the way I'll go about it. But I want to kick it back even older than Minish Cap for my number 8, and that's Ninja Gaiden.
That's a lot older than Minish Cap.
Yes, this is
Minish Cap's not actually that old.
Well,
it's 2004. Yeah.
So it's 16 years old. They could get a driver's license if it felt like it. But Ninja Gaiden is a game we talked about on Backlog Banter. It's a game that I played randomly one night at like 11 o'clock and stayed awake until a bizarre hour, beating it in one sitting. I think that it's an incredibly forward-thinking experience. It has an incredibly engaging story, particularly for an NES game,
Yeah.
and really punchy gameplay mechanics that are buried a little bit under some 80s era jank with respawning enemies and just some general fuckery. But when you're playing on someplace like NES Online, so you can get around that, it's an incredibly special experience, and it's one that I want to follow up on with the other games that came after it.
Yeah. We're gonna go back, not quite as old. Actually, when did Ninja Gaiden come out? Do you know the exact year?
80s.
Okay, so 80s. Regardless,
4, 7.
still pretty old. Final Fantasy VI. I talked about
That's an
this.
SNES game.
Yeah, so it's not as old, but it's still
Yes.
it's mid 90s. It's older than both of us.
I was born in 1945.
Well, you know what wasn't Final Fantasy VI, but this is the game that really is showing me how special classic JRPGs can be.
Sure.
I have dabbled in a few. I played the opening hours of Earthbound. I've tried just a couple of them, but Final Fantasy VI was the one that finally grabbed me, and I think that's just because of how forward thinking it really is. It is turn-based combat. It is random encounters, but the quality of production value in the cutscenes, in the character animations, which are small sprites but have so much little detail in them that it adds a ton of personality and charm, and just how the entire story weaves together, and a surprising amount of gameplay diversity in different sections. You have to do things like manage multiple groups at once, or you'll be sliding down a river, or you'll be climbing a weird dungeon. There's all sorts of different things that this game throws at you to spice things up, and it's just a fucking blast. I mean, this is one of those classic games that people older than us talk about, and I'm surprised, as someone who is younger and not experienced with the classic JRPG genre, that it holds up as well as it does. It's an absolutely fantastic game. I'm playing on Super Nintendo Classic, so I don't have anything like special about it. It's the Super Nintendo version, but this game's been re-released in a few ways. But I think that the original is the way to go if you have a Super Nintendo Classic, or can get it on Wii U Virtual Console. Or fucking emulate it, or get a Super Nintendo cartridge. It really is a must-play JRPG. That's all I have to say.
I will try that game at some point, and I will talk about more Final Fantasy later. But Tucker, I want to talk to you about a game. I want to talk to you about a game.
You've been doing that for a while, so I don't know if that's special, but
I told you, Tucker Hazel. This one I need to talk about a little bit, because I've not talked about to anyone about this game yet. I told you, Tucker Hazel, when I beat Cyberpunk, we could record this video, because I need to know where Cyberpunk was going to go. And it's like, I'm not going to play anything after Cyberpunk that's going to get on the list, because the year's fucking done. Little did I know that I would finally play the treasure hidden gem. Treasure's the name of the developer. The treasure hidden gem, Sin and Punishment.
Okay. Well, I find this very interesting for a multitude of reasons.
Yes.
You pride yourself on not overrating things,
and I'm not.
Gotten out for them. But this is incredibly high on your year's list, and you just finished it. Fucking check my watch like 12 hours ago.
Because Sin and Punishment, Tucker, is a Nintendo 64 game that is Star Fox 64 plus, essentially.
Wait, what?
Sin and Punishment is an on-rails shooter in the sense that Star Fox 64 is an on-rails shooter where you've got more movement over your character. But this is paired with a level of production value that I did not think was even fucking possible for an N64 game, with a fully voiced anime narrative about this government conspiracy in World War, with gameplay mechanics that add a significant amount of depth, with some platforming elements, with some melee elements, and boss battles that really challenge you to think and play differently, all contextualized in an on-rails shooter that has a level of scope and set-piece design that is absolutely staggering. This game will, before too long, by the time I play it a couple more times, will be in my top games of all time. The reason it's number 7 right now is because I've only played it the one time. Recency bias is my lack of recency bias is what's not putting it at number 2 on the list.
Holy fuck.
Sin and Punishment is a video game that has been patiently waiting for me to find it. And I'm so fucking glad I finally have. And I'm going to be buying Sin and Punishment Star Successor, which is the sequel on Wii, probably today.
Okay.
So I can play through that too. Because this game is fucking dynamite. It's fucking dynamite.
If you had asked me 5 minutes ago what kind of gameplay Sin and Punishment was, I don't know. I'd probably say hack and slash,
Yeah.
action, something, swords, but apparently not. That game, no one fucking talks about that game.
No one talks about it
It's
because
silly.
it released only in Japan in 2000 on the N64, and then it got a virtual console re-release with an English dub on. I thought it was on Wii U Virtual Console. Turns out it actually was on Wii Virtual Console, but it's also on both. I played on Wii U.
Okay.
Wow, I love this game.
That makes me feel some kind of way. It's a good kind of way, but also I'm sexually confused kind of deal.
Well, what's new?
You know what also is no, I can't. No, I shouldn't use that transition. One of the games that really deserves critical acclaim this year is Hades. That game is.
Oh,
What are you fucking cackling about?
I was putting together the transition you didn't make.
Hades is really special and it deserves all the awards it's got. I am not a roguelike guy.
Yes.
In fact, it's a gameplay trope that turns me off. But the way this game handles the roguelike genre in terms of story building, in terms of progression, in terms of its characters and its narrative, is so special and so finely tuned that you can play this game for a ridiculous amount of hours. The gameplay itself is on the next fucking level in terms of customizability, in terms of fast-paced action. It really is incredible. And I totally understand why people got into this game as much as they did.
Mm-hmm.
I albeit got into it a little bit later, but I played it in 2020. It came out this year, so and now I think as of 2 days ago or something, the cross save is available.
Yeah.
So you can play this game on your Steam or Epic, or it might just only be Epic, and then also play it on your Switch, and your progress carries over, which is that's fucking wild. That's insane. And it might make me get this game on my Switch because I originally played it on Epic Game Store. So Hades gets the seal of approval.
Hades is a absolutely stunningly crafted game that just didn't click with me personally, but I'm really glad that you enjoyed it as much as you did. Now let's talk about a game that I really enjoyed that you didn't at all, and that is my number 6 game of 2020, Cyberpunk 2077.
I knew this was coming.
This is a game that should have been higher on this list, but isn't because CD Projekt Red chose to release it now instead of in 4 months when it would have been unequivocally incredible. As it stands right now, this is, I think, a really rich RPG experience set in the context of an aesthetic and world that I absolutely love, that is just held back by a myriad of issues that I think should have been already straightened out, but will be straightened out in the months to come.
Mm-hmm.
I played through the game. I experienced the full main narrative. I loved it. I love Johnny Silverhand. I love the things that it does and the things that it says. But I save a lot of the side content for a second playthrough when I'm playing on a version that feels a little bit more stable. I played on PS5 already, and performance was already pretty solid. It ran amicably. It looked pretty good. But I want to be able to become fully immersed in Night City in the native version on PS5 before I do everything the game has to offer, because I will.
Yeah.
But the characters I met, the weapons I used, the ways I expect my character, the story beats I experienced, this game was what I wanted it to be. And I know I'm in the minority there, and I think that all of the opinions on Cyberpunk across the entire spectrum are equally valid and can be equally based in what CD Projekt Red has created and what they have done around the game. But for me, it just hit right, and I loved it.
This is currently my number 62 game of the year.
Okay.
Solidly below Donkey Kong 3.
All right.
Thank you for your time, everyone. But actually, we're not done. Top 5 is fucking coming. My number 5 game of the year, another game that we reviewed, another one of the first indie games we reviewed, A Short Hike.
Okay.
The fuck else would it be?
I thought you were gonna say Carrion, and I was gonna have a conniption fit.
Oh, that was the real first indie game that we reviewed.
Yeah.
Maybe it was Grounded. I don't know. We've actually done a lot more than I remembered.
Yeah.
But A Short Hike is nothing short of special. I mean, sincerely, it is one of the most well-crafted games I've ever played in my life. Everything about it feeds into just a feeling of fucking happiness and just genuine emotion. Because not only does this game have a incredibly happy art style, which is super unique and I think works very well. Fun characters, a lot of great side content that weaves into the main content, a wonderfully crafted little open world to explore, and really solid mechanics on top of that, and gliding and you collecting feathers to help you climb higher and fly farther. It also has a sort of twist ending that packs an emotional punch. So you can beat this game in 7 minutes, and I have. But if you really want to experience what this game has to offer, the entire thing is 2 hours long, and it is worth every fucking penny that you can possibly spend on it, because it's incredibly special, and it's a must play. Sincerely,
I agree. It's lower down on my list, just because other games spoke to me more. But it's a really exceptional game, I think.
yeah.
And I'm glad you represented it on this list, because now I'm going to talk about my number 5, which is a game you spoke about earlier, and that's Astro's Playroom.
Oh wow! Holy shit! I didn't think it would be this high.
Astro's Playroom is 3 hours of some of the most stunning 3D platforming I've ever experienced.
Oh.
I think that the game feels out of this world. I think that the ideas presented are just terrific. And I think mechanically it's incredibly solid. And this is just one of the most airtight foundations for a full 3D platform I've ever experienced.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
As someone who played Astrobot Rescue Mission as much as my feeble stomach could handle in VR, which is unfortunately not a ton, I learned after buying a PSVR, I was glad to see Astro in this format, and glad to see it celebrate PlayStation so tastefully and have so many of its own ideas. But I'm excited for it to move beyond the realm of just, okay, we're showcasing tech here. Now we're just making an incredibly rich 3D platformer, because these hours I had with Playroom are so special. So I can't wait to see what I can get up to in a full Astrobot PlayStation 5 headlining $60 platformer.
Oh yeah. And just to clarify, this was your first platinum, correct? Or did you not get the platinum?
I've never gotten a platinum trophy.
Okay, well, you play this for 30 more fucking minutes, you'll get the platinum, if you are at all curious.
I'll consider it.
You could not, and I think you should, because it's one of those games that I think shines the best when you're digging into its nooks and crannies and noticing all the fun details that they put into things, and exploring parts of the level that you didn't even know existed, or discovering level elements that are completely fresh. And not only that, but it's one of the games that best uses the card system to tell you where to go. It has a great way of leading you through things, so it's really easy to go back and collect collectibles. It's totally worth it. And also, getting through everything also means you have a more complete view of how it sort of references PlayStation history, and everything kind of comes together in a really great light. So I do recommend anyone who is hearing this and has a PS5 to get the platinum for Astro's Playroom, because it's certainly worth it. But you know what else I kind of got the platinum for, quote unquote, is, and I played this game in 3 days, and I did literally everything there is to do in the video game. I got every collectible. I completed every level. Banjo-Kazooie.
Oh, right.
On N64 on Xbox One.
Yes.
Banjo-Kazooie is, I don't know how this game is an N64 game. It is so many leagues ahead of Super Mario 64 in terms of visual design, in terms of variety, in terms of amount of collectibles, in terms of charming characters, in terms of writing, in terms of almost every single category. I do think the straight up controls of Mario are probably a little more fluid than Banjo-Kazooie, but they make up for that for having a ridiculously advanced moveset for an N64 game. It has one of the best game soundtracks of all time. I think the only things holding it back are things that weren't even issues for me, being the Grunty's game at the end where you have to sort of go through this randomly generated challenge board, which wasn't a problem for me because I had played everything that the game had to offer, so I knew what to expect. But I am shell shocked isn't the word, but I'll use it anyway. I am floored and shell shocked and every other version of a high praise for this game that I can be. It has no right being as good as it is, but it truly is. And as soon as I get back to Lincoln, I'm hopping into Banjo-Tooie because and the fact that the fucking creators of Banjo are circulating a fucking whisper in the wind of 2021 is going to be a big year for the Bear and the Bird. That gets the vibe check going harder than almost anything in the history of anything ever has.
I really loved the first world of Banjo.
Was it Mumbo's Mountain or Spiral Mountain?
The one where you fucking fight the big guy who's throwing tangerines
Oh,
at
the
you.
monkey. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Just Mumbo's Mountain, yeah.
And then that was Banjo-Kazooie is possibly the game that killed my Xbox. For all we know. But as soon as that's fixed, I'm going to be finishing this game. And then I'm going to be playing Tooie on original hardware because I like my N64 more than my Xbox Series S, and I've got Tooie back there somewhere.
Oh, interesting. I didn't know that. All right. Very cool. Number 4 for every computer. Go.
Mafia Definitive Edition.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
This is a game I didn't play at launch, and I was like, I don't really need to play it. But then we get around to watching The Godfather and The Godfather Part 2, and I'm like, fuck, I really like these movies, and I really like Casino, and I really like Goodfellas, and I really like The Irishman, and I really like Mobster Fair. So I bought Mafia, and I'm pretty sure I beat it in like a day and a half. I literally spent my entire time playing that game. I bought it like one weekend, and when I was at college, I'm like, that's just gonna be what I'm gonna do this weekend. I think this is an incredibly polished and AAA game. I think that the narrative is pretty interesting. It's a little bit standard, although I do like the motif of you playing as this guy leaving the mob and recounting his rise to glory and his fall to a detective at a meeting when you're trying to get protection for you and your family. I think that's a clever narrative concept. And I think that the shooting is really great. I think that the driving is really great. I think that every disparate element is really nice. And what's nice about this game in particular is that it has quieter moments that I think make the more bombastic moments feel better. It doesn't just feel like a shooting gallery. It doesn't just feel like a standard third person cover-based shooter with a mobster narrative and coat of paint. There are other things you do in the game that I think add to the aesthetic and add to the charm and elevate this game to number 4 for me. And I put it on my base PS4. I'm excited to not replay it anytime soon, but at least download it on my PS5 and see how it looks on that piece of tech, because it's already a visually stunning game on a base model. But I was really, really impressed by this game. I would like to play Mafia 2 in particular. I know people really like that. Mafia 3 is hit or miss. I think I have that on PS Plus, but I want to play more of the series because Definitive Edition was really, really special and really, really fun.
So I actually have I have a secret 3.5 here, and I'm not going to talk about this too long,
Okay.
but there is another game that I played this year that would be here if I hadn't limited my list to games I played for the first time this year, and that is the Stanley Parable, which I played through again this year with my roommate. And that I just want to give a quick mention. It's technically supposed to be on here, but I'm limiting this. So my real number 3 is Animal Crossing: New Horizons, a game that like you with Mafia, I played for too much time, an amount of time, but that amount of time was 3 months and not 3 days.
Yeah.
And I played hours and hours and hours and hours of this game every day for more than 3 months, which is unheard of for me. Like I even with like Minecraft and Overwatch, which are 2 of my favorite games of all time, well, I've played those more total and over a long period of time. This is probably one of the games I've put the most time into in a condensed period of time. It is everything I enjoyed about New Leaf taken to an entirely new level, and with some of the best Switch visuals, in my opinion. I think it perfected the Animal Crossing visual style, and I think the amount of freedom, creativity, and interactability that this game has puts it in another fucking stratosphere, and it deserves the acclaim that it's gotten and the impact that it's given the industry. It's such a special game that I am not even upset that I've sort of fallen off of it and gone to other stuff. I don't think that's any fault of the game, just my methods of playing as a game player. I like to bounce around to other things. But the fact that it did hold me for as long as it did, and outside of Picross S4 and Dragon Ball Fighter Z, I played nothing else but Animal Crossing New Horizons from March till May, and that's
Mhm.
fucking wild. That's insane.
It's on my list. It's down. It's down. I love that people love this game. Uh, I think the older style of Animal Crossing speaks to me more than the newer style, and that's totally fine. And this is probably, I think, the best way to move the series in order to widen its net and make its gameplay systems a little bit deeper. But for me, it just lost a little bit of something, even though I still put a good 40 hours into it and did enjoy my time with it. And it's fun watching my sister still play it every day and work on her town, which is infinitely more impressive than mine. But my number three is a game that, because you didn't really expect you were going to fall in love with Animal Crossing New Horizons.
Yeah.
I did not expect to fall in love with Final Fantasy VII Remake.
Oh yeah.
This is one of the few JRPGs that isn't. It actually might be the only JRPG that isn't Pokemon or Fire Emblem that I've finished.
Possibly, yeah.
This is a staggering game. What I love most about it is easily its combat system, which takes the spirit of turn-based combat and puts it in the context of a real-time action system. The way that you're fighting moment to moment as though it's more of a hack and slash, but then you can freeze time and pull up an action menu as though you're playing a classical turn-based role-playing game is such an excellent fusion of ideas that it really, really compelled me. At the same time, I think that its sort of cyberpunk world is incredible. I think Midgar is really awesome. I like its thematic movement. I like its characters a lot. Everything about this game compelled me and it hooked me, and I beat it in a very short order. It's a super special game, and it's gotten me interested to play more JRPGs, which is not an easy feat to do. So
Sure.
Final Fantasy VII Remake, absolutely awesome. And for a little bit of time, it was my game of the year.
Yeah. We're getting to the fucking big boys. All right. And I know this is my number two,
Yes.
but I can't say much more about these games than I have already because we've
Yes.
fully reviewed both of my number two and one. Ori and the Will of the Wisps is my number two game of the year. This is, in my opinion, the pinnacle of the Metroidvania genre in essentially every regard. It adds so much depth and replayability and detail and charm and visual acuity. I'm deeply saddened by the fact that this game got passed over for some of those bigger awards because I
Hmm.
do think those who have played it uh, consider it to be one of the top contenders of this year's awards. And it should be in almost every category, but that doesn't mean that it not being nominated for the end of the year takes away from any of the quality that it does have. This is a game I can't wait to replay after giving a little bit of breathing room because I do think that'll hold up. At least I fucking hope so. I mean, I obviously I can't really predict
Right.
that, but it is probably the only like Xbox One exclusive game that I think is like worth owning a console for, which is saying a lot.
Especially
Of course,
since it came to Switch.
that's right. Well, I played it before that, and I played it on
Yeah.
PC. So Microsoft carrying over stuff to PC, whatever. But if you had an Xbox One and you wanted some Xbox Game Studios games, I think that this is probably the best one. To be 100% honest, this is probably the best Xbox Game Studios game in a long, long time. Cuphead or original Ori notwithstanding, but yeah, full review. If I can't put a card here because we're out of card space in the description, and that applies to everything else that we've made reviews for. I will be putting those in the description.
So my number two is a game that is just really fucking cool and a game that is just very happy that it is a video game, and that's Devil May Cry 5. This game is so confidently off the wall that it just makes me happy. Dante has a weapon that's literally just a hat, And the cutscene where he
Okay.
gets it, he puts it on his head and grabs his belt and moonwalks like he's Michael Jackson across your TV screen. You can throw your hat around. You've got another weapon that's just a motorcycle that you can split in half and carry the two halves in your different hands and jump onto it to do combos. This game is so fucking wild, and it's paired with just incredible mechanics, incredible central mechanics that have a level of depth that my little baby brain couldn't possibly understand.
Mm-hmm.
But it's helped by a great accessibility options that let you feel empowered even as you're learning the gameplay systems, which you
Sure.
can then turn off as you get more comfortable and you get more comfortable with the ideas of doing these combos yourself. But it's such a scalable experience that is absolutely incredibly off the wall and so much fun, and has some of the best music of any game that's just pulse pounding and awesome. God, Devil May Cry 5 is so fucking cool. I love this game, and I'm going to play. I'm going to give it a little bit of time before I play 5 Special Edition, just
Sure.
because I think I'll have more fun getting a little bit more distance between my last playthrough. But that does add a lot of meaningful content I like to experience. But oh God, I love this game.
We've come to a very special moment.
Should we say at
The
the same
year of
time?
our Lord 2020. It's the sync on the Zoom is not going to be supportive of that, to be
That's
100%
what's going to make
honest.
it fun.
Okay. You want to do a
3,
count? Yeah.
2, 1. Super
The
Mario
last,
Brothers 2.
I'm going to fucking kill you. But The Last of Us Part 2 is, I think we just go ahead and do a mini discussion, mini review right here. Because while we
Okay.
do have a hour and a half review of it, I think our thoughts on this game deserve to be touched on once fucking again. What, for the fucking 6th time or something? We have so many videos of us talking about our thoughts on this game. But I mean, obviously, favorite game of 2020 collectively for Backlog Banter deserves a little bit of discussion.
Favorite game of 2020, arguably my favorite game of all time. Star Fox 64 is really good, putting up a really good fight in my mind to take its spot back. But it's just a testament to the fact that Last of Us Part 2 could even get in that conversation. Fucking crazy. This game is, I think, pushing the industry forward in a lot of ways that were obfuscated, big boy word, by the little boys online who are shitting on it for no reason.
100%.
This was so deserving to win Game of the Year because even playing things on PlayStation 5, nothing matches the level of detail that Naughty Dog shoved into this fucking game.
Yeah.
And nothing anywhere matches, I think, the level of thematic and narrative nuance that recontextualizes the player's relationship to a linear game narrative, that asks questions that other games don't want to ask. It's just, Naughty Dog is just disgustingly good at what they do.
This sure. And I think this is the next level Naughty Dog that we haven't seen before. I mean, Uncharted 4, is a tease of this in terms of narrative complexity and emotional impact and stuff like that. But it's nowhere close. And honestly, neither is the fucking Last of Us, the original
No.
one. And this is a comparison I've made before, but I think it's salient. Is Last of Us Part 2 makes the original look like a fucking crayon drawing,
I love that.
and The Last of Us 2 is a painting, is a fucking Monet, or I don't know artist, but it is on such another level in terms of narrative complexity, in terms of the fucking set pieces in this game, and the environments are so insane in terms of their detail and their variety, and what that variety does for your gameplay, and them expanding on the relatively basic gameplay mechanics of crafting and hiding and shooting and stuff like that. These are they're cranked to number 15, and I think that this game is what's spoiling me towards not thinking next gen games are so mind blowing, even with something like Miles Morales, which runs at 60 FPS and has ray tracing and looks fantastic. I think that the visual detail that this game has blew me away so much that I'm not feeling the impact of next gen, which is just a testament to Naughty Dog and not necessarily a criticism of anyone else. But like you were saying, this is pushing forward the industry in I think a way that a lot of people aren't going to notice for a while, because I think that the story that this game tells is so many leagues above any other video game story, in my opinion, that it will stand the test of time and become so influential that video games could be taken in a new direction in terms of storytelling in the future. And I think that is ridiculously exciting. And I'm so glad to be on the ground floor for this.
Yes. I don't have anything else
Yes.
to add. It's just awesome. And I think the last thing I want to say, and I think I touched on this before, is I'm excited for the dust to settle and people to revisit this game in a couple of years so we can
Yeah.
have actual conversations both about what it does right, but what I think it legitimately does do wrong, and what people find compelling and just interesting about it, because all of the great media has its detractors as well as its its defenders, and it's that conversation that makes something last, and this game is worth the conversation. So I'm excited for it to happen.
Now, I have something very quickly I'd like to do. I'm going to name off 5 other games that I played this year that people won't expect to be on here, but I think it'd be fun to talk about. I don't know if you have 5 other ones you might want to bring
Of
up.
weird games.
Yeah, just
Okay.
these can be anywhere on your list.
Yes, I do.
I'm gonna stick to stuff that I think is I like. I don't want to go
Yes.
to games I don't like, but SimCity 4.
Okay.
We did a couple live streams of that. Fucking really fun. The Oregon Trail, got into that for the first time. It's a little bit old, but I played
Sure.
that for the first time. Super Mario Land, which I think is the game that got me into 2D platformers,
Hmm.
which is weird to say, but it's I'm serious. World of Goo, a WiiWare game re-released on Switch near the launch of that system, but God, I can't remember the developer off the top of my head, but that team does great fucking work. I also loved Little Inferno. World of Goo, very special. And let's just throw in Until Dawn, because I played
Okay.
that at the beginning of this year and got that platinum, and that's a game I don't hear a lot of people talk about, but I really enjoyed Until Dawn.
You know what I'm gonna do? I'm going to tell you about a little game called Proteus, which is a very strange, um, basically Doom clone that
Mhm.
that has its own flair, and it's in early access right now. I reviewed it for CBR, and I really enjoyed it. I just think it's such a fucking crazy and kinetic gameplay experience. I also throw a bit of Metroid Fusion in there, which I beat this year for the first time, and I really loved it. I like that it's a little bit more linear and narrative focused, actually, and I think the pixel art is absolutely stunning. I'm really excited to hopefully get a new 2D Metroid next year. I'm also going to throw in Shantae and the Seven Sirens, which
Hmm.
is a game that caught me by surprise because I haven't been huge on the Shantae series in the past. But this is just such a polished and well executed Metroidvania that makes you feel smart. I'm also going to throw in Jedi Knight Jedi Academy, which is an incredibly janky game from the early 2000s that still has a Star Wars narrative and combat that are almost second to none. So even in light of its issues, I really, really vibed with that game. And I'm going to throw in one other title called Stories Untold, which is a game developer digital published, which is basically a collection of 4 seemingly unrelated horror vignettes that play out as point and click adventure games of various styles, but then coalesce in a absolutely harrowing and deviously set up twist
Hmm.
that leaves the player with a real world, legitimately applicable cautionary tale that really blew me away.
Okay.
And the last game I'm going to mention, and it wouldn't have been able to be on the list under my personal rules because I didn't finish it, but I got
Hmm.
to give a shout out to Persona 5 Royal, which is a game I
Okay.
played for 15 hours of and fucking loved the style of and loved everything about it. Then I was like, I just don't know if in my JRPG career this is the one I'm ready for right now.
Yeah.
So I'd put it down, but there are a couple more.
That is 2020, ladies and gentlemen. That is our top games of the year. I really enjoy doing random game discussions like this, and of course, that's what BLB, our core games discussion series, is. So go check out that series. But 2021 is upon us, and I am excited not only for next episode of BLB, in which we're going to be discussing our 2021 gaming resolutions of games we want to play to sort of push each other to actually get shit done, but to see what random games we end up enjoying, because I would say 80+% of my list here are games that I didn't expect to play this year or enjoy as much as I did, and that is fun. That's fun. That's
Yes.
just great. So 2021 is coming, and we will be covering games, a lot of them. We've got a lot of fun plans coming up. Anything else to say? Subscribe, like the video, check out our other stuff.
Yeah, do things of that nature, I suppose. Play Star Fox 64. I haven't said that yet in this video. It's a good game. Play Sin and Punishment, though, also. Sin and Punishment might be the better experience, but nothing. We can't beat Star. I don't want to talk about this yet. I've got some serious introspection to do. But on that note, I think this has been our favorite games of 2020. Actually, I know it has been. We're not lying to you
No.
on this video. Goodbye.
Anything. It's fucking wild. I can just move my body. It looks like I'm dancing, like there might be music, but there's not. I'm fucking off my rocker today, you know? Who knows what's gonna happen?
I'm certainly glad I hit record.
Who knows what's gonna fucking happen? Today, I mean, a meteor could come down. It's gonna be like, Majora's Mask. If I'm dancing to nothing, oh Lord.